I've been saving this slab of walnut, and it's time to make something with it. So, let's get started. It's been a while since I practiced my dovetails, so I'm hand cutting the dovetails for the case joinery. There's no shame in using a magnetic dovetail guide, and if you want to try this one, I'll leave a link in the description below. But I've also put links to all of my favorite hand tools, power tools, and shop accessories on my website. I also have a 90-degree saw guide for cuts like this. Once the edges of the tails are established with my saw, I chop the rest of the waste with a dovetail chisel. The block of plywood keeps my chisel cuts going straight down. When the tails are done, I transfer the lines onto my other sides to cut the pins. And then that same magnetic dovetail saw guide that I used to cut the tails gets flipped around so the angle is perfect for cutting the pins. I like using the back of my saw to make sure I'm on my scribed line. I clamp on a piece of plywood to make sure I don't go too far down with my coping saw. Chop, 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 and more chopping. In the end, there's 16 tails and 20 pins. Stegosaurus for scale. And based on the dry fit, I'd say they came out pretty good for a 15-year hiatus. I'm adding a middle partition to the cabinet to stiffen it up a bit. So I'm setting up my router to cut some sliding dovetails. But I'm using a straight bit for the first pass. And then I'll use the dovetail bit to finish it off. I'm using these brass setup blocks to make sure that the sliding dovetail and the slot are the same depth. Now that I've cut the slots in the sides of my case, I'm going to use my router table to cut the actual dovetails in the ends of the partition. I cut it tight the first time because I want to sneak up on the fit. The slot doesn't go all the way to the front of the case, so I have to cut off part of the sliding dovetail. Before I glue up the case, I do the final sanding on all the inside faces, and then use masking tape to protect all the inside corners from any glue squeeze out. And always remember to label everything. And after all these years, I've finally found the perfect excuse to use my domino joiner. It truly is an amazing tool for joinery. I made some clamping cauls to put pressure right on the tails. I trimmed the ends of the tails and pins flush with a low-angle block plane. I used my SketchUp design to pull curves from the legs that I could use to make a template on my Glowforge. It has no problem cutting plywood up to 1/4 of an inch thick. The full-length leg wouldn't fit in my Glowforge, so I cut them each in 2 sections and staggered the joints. Then I used instant CA glue to make one solid template piece. Before cutting my actual leg pieces, I decided to use the template as a full-scale mock-up to make sure I liked the design. And of course, the most important thing was getting approval from the boss.
What do you think?
I love it.
You think it's tall enough?
Yeah, I think it's perfect.
All right, cool.
I'm making the legs out of mahogany. cut the rough shape on my bandsaw. And then I use double stick tape to attach my router template to my leg piece so I can cut the final shape on the router table. I pulled this old Delta tenon jig out of storage for the leg joinery. It needed a lot of cleanup and tuning up, but I'm glad I took the time to do it. The joinery for the legs is called a bridle joint. And I'm just doing a dry fit before the glue up. I want to add some detail to the leg shape, so I'm going to start with the router table. At this point, I only have a vague idea of what the end result will look like. I'll determine the final shape with my spoke shave. I spent some time arranging various species of wood veneer until I came up with a color palette that I liked for the mountainscape design. And then I let my Glowforge do the cutting. My Glowforge laser has changed how I design, build, and even think about woodworking. It's the fastest, quietest, and most accurate machine in my shop. It's so easy to learn that my kids regularly use it to make craft projects. And hopefully I'm about to prove to you how powerful it can be as a serious business or shop tool. I've got a coupon code that will save you up to $500 on a Glowforge and supports my channel as well. So if I've inspired you to try one, go to glowforge.com/Weber to get started. I arranged my pieces like a jigsaw puzzle on the sticky contact paper. And this time, I'm laminating my design onto another sheet of veneer before I glue them to the door fronts. I'm using a vacuum press, which works by sucking all the air out of a bag so that atmospheric pressure can work like a clamp on your veneers until the glue dries. Now I need to actually build the cabinet doors. The core is high-quality birch plywood and the edges are solid walnut. I'm covering the back of the doors with walnut veneer. And the mountainscape design finally gets glued to the door fronts. Cutting a recess in the back of the cabinet for the back panel to sit in. And I'm using more plywood and walnut veneer to make the back panel. My drill press cuts the precise holes for the adjustable Euro-style hinges. I carefully measure and mark for the leg attachment points. And this hole is for the hardware that will attach the legs to the tabletop. I wanted to try cutting brass for the first time on my CNC to create some custom hardware for this piece. I polished it to a high shine, and then I actually decided that it was too shiny for this piece. So after a little internet research, it seems that 12 hours of ammonia fumes would take the edge off the shininess and give it a little bit of character. Ammonia fumes can be dangerous, so I opened it outside. I was pretty happy with the surface finish at this point, so I sealed it with a few coats of polyurethane. Now that the brass door pulls are done, I'm using my router to cut a small recess into the top of the doors for them to fit into. and adding some finishing touches. Lately, I've been using this sanding sealer for the first coat under my polyurethane finish. It fills any wood pores, builds up a slightly thicker first coat, and easily sands smooth and flat. And after a careful final sanding off camera, I apply the wipe-on polyurethane. Surfaces on the back and underside of the piece get about 2 to 3 coats, but I'll usually layer up to 6 coats on top surfaces for durability. Hand finishing a piece like this can take between 3 to 6 days depending on the weather, but I really like the look and feel of the surface it creates. I'm using these bronze bushings to create some space between the cabinet sides and the legs. And the tabletop will attach to the legs with a machine screw and a threaded insert. And now that it's finally time to install my custom brass hardware, I've decided that I hate it. I just created a clown face. That's not okay. Back to the drawing board. Let's see if my Glowforge can bail me out. I'm cutting out little pieces of the same curly koa wood veneer that I used in the sky. And my plan is to laminate them together with opposing grain directions for strength. I'm gluing up a total of 7 layers, and with each layer, the grain direction is turned 90 degrees. I'm just clamping them between 2 pieces of wood for a couple hours until the glue dries. Basically, I've just created the most expensive sheet of plywood in the history of the world. And now I'm entrusting it to a robot with freaking laser beams for eyeballs. I'm using some double-stick tape on a scrap of wood to hold my new handles while I finish them with polyurethane. And I also have to modify the top of the doors to fit the new handles. Hey, check it out. I just finished creating a new line of t-shirts and other apparel from my favorite woodworking designs, including this project. T-shirts, stickers, and other merchandise are all available now on my website at reasonable prices. And as always, a huge thank you to all of my supporters on Patreon for encouraging me to go out into the shop late at night after the kids go to bed and produce these videos. If you want to join the club, get access to SketchUp and Laser SVG files, as well as discounts up to 50% off merch, or see your name at the end of these videos, just find me on Patreon. See you later.